He was the ultimate wife guy. The man who built his entire online identity on loving his family, doting on his wife, and reminding fans at every chance that his marriage was the center of his world. And then, in one blurry moment, it all came crashing down. A single photo turned Ned Fulmer from one of the most admired members of the Try Guys into the internet's biggest scandal. And now, years later, he's back. But the world hasn't forgotten, and judging by the reactions, the world might never forgive. But before we get into his comeback, let's rewind to the image he built in the first place. For years, Ned Fulmer seemed untouchable. As 1/4 of the Try Guys, he stood out for one thing: his constant devotion to Ariel. While Keith, Zach, and Eugene built their personas around comedy, chaos, or creativity, Ned leaned into being the husband. He was the guy who reminded you that love was real, who slipped in references to Ariel at every opportunity, and who built his brand on being stable, reliable, and loyal. Fans ate it up. He wasn't just entertaining, he was aspirational. People admired how much he showcased his wife and kids. In an internet landscape dominated by scandals, Ned positioned himself as the safe one. The family man, the moral compass, the husband who bragged about his marriage like it was his greatest achievement. But here's the thing. When you build a brand around being the perfect partner, the fall from grace isn't just a stumble, it's a free fall. And that free fall started with one grainy photo. And that photo would unravel everything Ned had worked to create. September 2022 marked the beginning of one of the most explosive YouTube scandals in recent memory. Fans were stunned when a blurry photo surfaced online showing Ned Fulmer, known worldwide as the Try Guy's self-proclaimed wife guy, with a woman who was not his wife, Ariel. What began as a grainy snapshot at a New York bar quickly spiraled into a viral storm once internet detectives identified the woman as Alex Herring, an associate producer for the Try Guys. This wasn't just shocking because of who Ned was, it was devastating because Alex worked directly under him, making the situation both a personal betrayal and a workplace ethics disaster. As the story spread, the evidence piled up. Ned and Alex weren't just caught in one photo. They were spotted together multiple times in public, including at a Harry Styles concert. Fans also claimed to see them around New York neighborhoods, with rumors swirling of even more intimate encounters. For someone who had built his entire persona on being devoted to Ariel and their family, the revelations felt like a betrayal, not only of his wife, but of the fan base who trusted him. The scandal wasn't just messy, it was deeply ironic. The wife guy had become the internet's most infamous cheater, and people couldn't stop talking about it. But what truly set this scandal apart was the power dynamic involved. Alex wasn't just another person in the entertainment industry, she was Ned's direct subordinate at the Try Guys. This turned the cheating allegations into a workplace nightmare, raising serious questions about professionalism, consent, and boundaries. Suddenly, this wasn't just a story about a celebrity caught in an affair. It was a case study in ethics that forced fans, employers, and even fellow YouTubers to confront how power can be abused behind the scenes. And while the internet was glued to every new sighting and rumor, the most telling signs of all were happening quietly in the Try Guys' own videos. Because suddenly it wasn't just about blurry photos, the Try Guys themselves were acting differently. In the weeks after the photo leaked, fans noticed something odd. Ned started disappearing from videos. Shots where he should have been front and center were suddenly cropped tighter. Episodes that clearly featured 4 guys somehow only showed 3. The edits weren't subtle, they were glaring, and that made people suspicious. The speculation reached a breaking point when the Try Guys released a video titled, "What Happened?" The clip went instantly viral. It wasn't just an announcement, it was an internet event. People described it like watching a breakup in real time. In fact, the video was so dramatic, so unexpected, that Saturday Night Live spoofed it. That's how massive the fallout was. In the video, the Try Guys confirmed what fans already suspected. Ned had been involved in a consensual workplace relationship. Effective immediately, he was no longer part of the group. It wasn't just a cheating scandal, it was a professional disaster. The Try Guys weren't just losing a friend, they were losing content, money, and trust. And what came next showed just how deep the damage went. Because behind the scenes, things were even messier than the internet realized. What most people didn't realize at first was that removing Ned Fulmer from the Try Guys wasn't as simple as cutting ties. Behind the scenes, the fallout was massive. Entire videos that had already been filmed, edited, and prepared for release had to be thrown away overnight. Projects they had invested both time and money into were suddenly unusable, creating financial losses that hit the team hard. But even beyond the financial side, the emotional toll was staggering. Keith openly admitted the scandal felt like going through a breakup, while Eugene, normally calm and collected, looked visibly furious in their statement video. Fans could tell the betrayal wasn't just professional, it cut deep into their personal bonds. But the scandal didn't only expose cracks in the group, it also highlighted a harsh reality about internet culture. While Ned stepped back from the spotlight, Alex Herring, the employee involved, became a lightning rod for online hate. Despite the fact that Ned was her boss and held the position of power, fans directed disproportionate anger and harassment toward her. It was a clear example of the double standards women often face in high-profile scandals, where they receive harsher backlash even when they are not the ones in control. The Try Guys made a point to emphasize this dynamic, but the damage had already been done. Alex's name was dragged through the mud, while Ned quietly disappeared from public view. In the end, the scandal wasn't just about a broken marriage or a ruined reputation. It became a cultural moment that forced the internet to reckon with questions of power, accountability, and fairness. For Ned, the outcome was silence. He issued a short apology, claimed he was focusing on his family, and then vanished from every platform. For years, there was nothing but quiet. No videos, no updates, no presence online. Until suddenly, years later, he decided to step back into the spotlight, reigniting all the emotions people thought they had left behind. And when he finally broke that silence, he didn't just return. He returned on the exact day of his downfall. After 3 years of silence, Ned Fulmer chose the most symbolic day possible to step back into the spotlight, the very anniversary of his removal from the Try Guys. September 16th, the date that had once marked the abrupt end of his YouTube career, suddenly became the day he tried to reclaim his story. And how did he do it? By announcing a brand new podcast with a title that couldn't have been more ironic, Rock Bottom. But the real jaw-dropper was his choice of first guest. Sitting across from him for the debut episode wasn't a celebrity collaborator, a PR expert, or even a longtime friend. It was Ariel, the very woman whose name had been tied to the scandal from the beginning. For longtime fans who remembered every detail of the cheating scandal, the decision was nothing short of shocking. Ariel Fulmer had been humiliated on a global stage, dragged into one of the biggest internet controversies of 2022, and forced to live under the shadow of Ned's betrayal. Seeing her agree to sit down with him as part of his comeback wasn't just unexpected, it was almost unthinkable. It raised immediate questions. Was this a genuine attempt at closure, or was it another move to leverage their marriage for content? Either way, the reveal felt surreal, and the internet wasted no time in reacting. Social media erupted within minutes of the announcement. Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram filled with harsh reactions, mocking Ned's timing and choice of guest. Comments like "jump scare" and "thanks for the reminder to unfollow" dominated every thread. Others called it nothing more than a publicity stunt and questioned why Ariel would participate in what felt like reopening old wounds. Instead of sparking excitement for his so-called redemption arc, the podcast launch reignited public anger. For many, it wasn't seen as a heartfelt comeback. It was viewed as Ned Fulmer trying to profit off the very scandal that destroyed his reputation in the first place. But the most surprising part wasn't even the podcast. It was what came out just hours later. Just when the internet thought they had seen it all, a new twist sent shockwaves through social media. Only hours after Ned Fulmer's highly publicized podcast announcement, People magazine dropped a bombshell. Ned and Ariel weren't even together anymore. The timing couldn't have been more bizarre. The podcast teaser clip had shown the two of them sitting side by side, calmly addressing the cheating scandal as though they were presenting a united front. To viewers, it looked like Ariel had decided to stand by her husband no matter the humiliation. The optics painted her as supportive, but the reality, as people revealed, was completely different. The news of their separation completely reframed the situation. Fans who had mocked Ariel for having no backbone or participating in what they called a humiliation ritual suddenly realized things weren't so black and white. According to reports, the couple had quietly separated years after the scandal, though they continued to co-parent and even travel together for the sake of their children. Their recent trip to Greece was highlighted as proof that they were still on good terms, but romantically they were finished. What once looked like a wife blindly standing beside her husband was actually a far more complicated dynamic. But instead of bringing clarity, the announcement raised even more questions. Why would Ariel agree to sit down for the first episode of Ned's Comeback podcast if they were no longer together? Why not be upfront about their separation before the teaser went public? And most importantly, was the sudden timing of this reveal a strategic move to get ahead of an even more damaging story? For many, the separation wasn't just news. It was a reminder that Ned Fulmer's scandal was still evolving in ways no one could have predicted. Because as it turned out, the story was about to get even messier. If Ned Fulmer thought his podcast announcement was going to be the big story of his return, he was wrong. Just as headlines about rock bottom were rolling out, TMZ dropped a fresh set of photos that changed everything. The images, taken only days before his official comeback, showed Ned with another woman, clear proof that he had already moved on from Ariel. Suddenly, the People magazine report about their separation made perfect sense. Without that detail being revealed first, these photos would have caused a PR disaster and painted him as even more deceitful. The timing raised eyebrows everywhere, with many wondering if the separation story was rushed out specifically to soften the blow of these new paparazzi shots. But even with the explanation in place, the internet wasn't ready to forgive or forget. Instead of celebrating a so-called redemption arc, critics slammed Ned for what they saw as shamelessly monetizing his downfall. The idea of turning one of YouTube's biggest scandals into the foundation of a new career didn't sit well with fans. Ariel, too, faced backlash for her participation in the first episode, with many accusing her of enabling Ned or lowering herself by being part of what viewers called a humiliation circus. For longtime followers of the Try Guys, the whole situation felt less like growth and more like reopening old wounds for clicks. Ned, however, appeared unfazed by the criticism. In his People interview, he admitted he would no longer be paying close attention to online comments, saying he planned to let the work speak for itself. But that statement only fueled more debate. Could the work really stand on its own when the world wasn't interested in hearing from him anymore? For many, the answer was no. Instead of a comeback, the launch of Rock Bottom seemed to confirm exactly what fans feared, that Ned Fulmer's name would forever be tied to scandal, not success. And that leads to the biggest question of all. What does this mean for Ned's legacy? At this point, Ned Fulmer's story has evolved into something far bigger than just a cheating scandal. What started as a blurry photo in a New York bar quickly became one of the most infamous internet controversies of the decade, reshaping how fans view influencers, workplace ethics, and the fragility of online reputations. Once celebrated as the Try Guy's devoted wife guy, Ned's downfall showed just how fast the internet can elevate someone, and how much faster it can tear them down. His rise and fall has become a cultural case study, a cautionary tale about what happens when personal branding collides with personal mistakes. Now, the spotlight has shifted from the past to the uncertain future. Will Rock Bottom find an audience willing to hear his side of the story, or will it fade into obscurity as quickly as it launched? The reactions to his announcement made it clear that forgiveness isn't guaranteed. Many fans believe his name will forever be tied to scandal rather than content creation, a reminder of how one wrong move can overshadow years of work. Even Ariel's involvement has left people divided, sparking debates over loyalty, resilience, and the limits of public forgiveness. Every move Ned makes from here on out will be judged against the shadow of his past. And perhaps the biggest question of all, was this comeback about true redemption, or was it simply about refusing to let go of the spotlight? For some, Rock Bottom looks like an attempt to rebuild. For others, it feels like reopening old wounds. One blurry photo ended his career, but this podcast might define his legacy once and for all. Whether history remembers Ned Fulmer as a cautionary tale, a redemption story, or a permanent punchline in YouTube history, one thing is undeniable. The internet will never forget what happened. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and drop a like if you enjoyed the video. It really helps the channel grow and makes sure you never miss the next upload.